customer brings a purchase back to the store, you need to process that item through as a return in order to get a negative amount onto the ticket. You cannot sell the item and then change the quantity to a negative value. That is not how returns are handled in EncomPos. This video will show you the different ways to process a customer's return through EncomPos Retail. Returns can be done by referencing the customer's actual purchase or by using the return button at the point of sale when the customer's purchase cannot be found. There's a definite benefit to using the first over the latter in that the exact value of what the customer paid for the item or items is known. If the customer has the physical printout of their receipt, returns can be triggered by scanning the barcode located at the bottom of their receipt. Here is an image of a receipt with that barcode. Scanning the barcode into our scan prompt at the point of sale opens the Merchandise Receipt Return interface. Here you will need to choose whether you are returning only some of the items on the receipt or returning the entire sale. Returning the entire sale will simply bring all of the items on the receipt back to the POS with the return amount for each. So we'll select to return only a partial sale and click the next button at the bottom of our window. Now our Merchandise Receipt Return window is open and interactive. To the left, you can select which item or items are being returned, and for each item selected, you choose whether the product is being returned to the shelf for resale or being returned back to the supplier. Returning the product for resale will adjust the product's quantity on hand value up to account for the number being returned. Returning the product to the supplier will not adjust the quantity on hand and will give you the choice to interact with the return merchandise interface in the retail operations should you want to get credit back from your supplier. Notice that if you select Return to Supplier, you will be prompted to choose a reason why this item is not able to be resold. This is a list that can be customized for your store in the retail operations. Let's cancel this return for a minute and go into the retail operations. On the tray menu, we'll open the System Configuration section and go to the drop-downs and lists. Going to the return reasons in our list, which we'll scroll to get to, we can see our current return reasons, which can be edited or added to using the plus sign at the bottom of the window. The reasons selected at the time of the return will be included in the Return Merchandise Report. Now let's go back to the point of sale. We'll rescan our barcode and go back into our return. You can select multiple products to return from the transaction. As well, if the item has multiple quantities that were purchased, you can set the number being returned. Notice how an item sold at 1 is fixed, compared to that sold with multiple quantities allows you to change the quantity up or down. You can also add a restocking fee to the return by using the checkbox and selecting one of the custom values. Let's cancel this one more time and bring back the retail operations. On the tree menu, we'll stay in the System Configuration section, but this time we'll go to the retail environment. We'll go to the point of sale options from here, and we'll open the Selling Behavior tabs, where you find the 4 percentage fields to set what shows in the return interface. Going back to the point of sale, we'll bring up that return one more time. And going back into the restocking fee section, you'll also see there's a fee button, which clicking will open a number pad for you to set a fee on the fly. So let's choose a couple of items to return. And with all of the items we have set being to return, you can click the Finish button to go back to the ticket on the POS with your selected items. Notice the amount is negative, and when you total, the payment buttons are red. This is to alert you that the current amount will be returned to the customer and not charged. I'll mention that returns do not have to be separate from a purchase. You can add products, services, or anything to the current transaction regardless of the return being on the sale. And your return can be tendered to any of our tendering methods. You can issue the amount to a store credit or a gift card that the customer can use on a future purchase, or of course tender it to cash or credit for instant return of the customer's money. Now let's suppose the customer doesn't have their receipt, but the purchase was rung up under the customer's account. In that case, you can still return against their receipt once you locate it within the customer's shopping cart. We'll do a quick customer lookup and pull up Rich Wagner. And add him to our sale. Using the shopping cart button, which only shows when a customer is on our sale, we can see Rich's purchase history. At the bottom of the shopping cart, you can click the Return button to return items against the selected transaction. From this point, everything is the same as our first return, so we'll cancel this and move on. Now let's suppose the customer doesn't have their receipt and you can't find the purchase in their shopping cart. If you know the purchase date, you can try to locate it by doing a receipt lookup at the point of sale. Clicking the Receipt Lookup button opens a window where you will see the current day's receipts. There are quick links at the bottom of the Receipt Lookup window to pull up either yesterday's receipts or a calendar to select from a specific date. Pulling up the calendar, let's go back to May and select the 30th. Now we can see each receipt for that day, which you can return against. Finally, if all else fails and the purchase is unable to be found through any of the aforementioned methods, a manual return can be done using the Return button on the POS pad. When you click the Return button, you will notice the word Return just underneath the scan prompt. The next item you bring up, whether it's barcoded scanned or looked up by description or triggered using the Express Sell or Direct Sell buttons, however you choose to bring up the item being returned, because that return status is up, it will step you through the process of doing the return on that item. For our example, we'll do an item lookup by description for a Nakona mask bag. We'll select the mask bag and click the Ring button. It immediately opens a window for us to select whether the product is being returned for resale or not. As well, we need to set the quantity the customer is returning. Clicking the OK button, it will bring the item back to the receipt. By default, the software is pulling back the current retail price for the item. Had the item been on sale or discounted when the customer purchased it, we don't really know without a receipt. For this reason, we have a system setting to look back X number of months to see if the item was in a promotion. This won't take into account a manual discount done at the time of sale, but had it been on promotion, it would then give back the lowest price during the time frame the system is set to look back. And that covers the different ways to process a return at the point of sale. I will mention there are certain purchases that cannot be returned through the return merchandise process. Scuba activities such as classes, trips, and charter signups must all be canceled or dropped through the Scuba calendar, and receipts such as account payments and gift card purchases are all handled differently should the customer decide they want their money returned. But that is for another video lesson.